I think I have to say it. Okay, here it is. I'm recording this episode without clothes. Okay, I'm sorry. It's happening. I said it. I had to let you know. I will click that this podcast is not available for kids and it's only voice. It's only voice. But here we are because there is the craziest heat wave I've ever experienced in Germany. Europe is boiling. The center of Europe, the countries around there are literally getting cooked. And if you're with me, you're suffering with me, and it's happening right now. If you are people of the future, just know that this is a time where 1,000 people in France are dying from heat. It's like 40 degrees in Berlin. They haven't built houses for this type of weather. I live in a 100-year-old building that's built to withstand the cold German winter. At this point that I'm talking to you, it's radiating heat from 6 different sides, 4 walls, plus the ceiling, plus the ground below me. I'm getting cooked as I'm talking to you. My only defense is a glass of water and a tiny fan. A fan that is a USB fan to just put in a computer. You know, the thing you have for convenience every now and then. I have it for survival. I wish it could work harder, but it can't. But the fan doesn't do anything. My Instagram is full of advice to put the fan to push the air out of the window, to put tinfoil on your windows so they reflect back. Literally, my phone started overheating so much, the protective thing I have on the screen started peeling off. The traffic lights are melting in Berlin. The street is even melting. It's on the news that some parts of the streets, the asphalt is so hot, and from the weight of, trains and trams and all that, it's literally collapsing and they have to go fix it. So this is what we are experiencing right now. It's the day of the peak. There is society disruption, close to collapse. It's a good workout for what might be happening in the next years to come. I want to say to my son, I'm sorry that this is what you will be experiencing every day, I guess, while you have to go to school when you're older. I didn't buy an AC in this country. I recycled as much as I could, but it wasn't enough. It's the year of the biggest El Nino effect. El Nino means small, but now it needs to be super duper El Nino. It's a weather phenomenon. You need to look it up, how bad we're going to have it in terms of rising temperatures. They can see it from the temperature of the surface of the water and the disruption it does and all of these things. And I am not ready. That is my point. This is why I'm recording the way I'm recording. I mentioned it earlier. I'm not going to say it again. I hope you are prepared. And let's get this going, because I have so many things to tell you. Hi, hello, and welcome to yet another expat. This is episode 98, I think. I had a gap, a break, a few weeks of absence. I'm sorry for that. I really want to hit 100 episodes before I declare this season over, sometime in the summer. So I'm still going towards that. Just to give you a bit of context on the absence, I had to go to a wedding, which is a nice event, a wedding in Denmark from a friend. We went there as a family with my girlfriend and our little son. We had a blast, and now he's walking, so things get even more entertaining. And it was really nice to go, but even better to return back to Berlin and go to the airport toilets and see my dear friend, because nothing makes me feel more at home than the mini vibrators they are selling in the Berlin airport toilets. I've said this before. The first time I discovered, I was so shocked. You can buy, a tiny toothbrush, some dental floss, condoms, but you can also put a small vibrator you can stuck in your ass and go around like that. What a better way to say welcome to Germany. Now, in this podcast, I've talked about airports and things like that a bit, and I have 2 remarks to make from my latest travel. I mean 3 if you consider the mini vibrator at the airports. I had a flight with EasyJet. I haven't flown with EasyJet for a bit. And what I believe I experienced, I had a fast boarding, which sounds very privileged, but I needed to have a hand luggage. This is why they give it together. And I realized that the fast boarding people, when we were checking in, they told us to stay left, and I believe the rest of the people, they told them to stay right. So I keep walking through the bridge, this thing that looks like an accordion, and I go inside the plane and take a seat. And then I see that there is a line of people that is walking through the airport, through the heat, not through the bridge that is connected with the front of the aircraft. And it's people that are boarding the same flight. And I think that this is peak late stage capitalism, straight out of a Black Mirror episode, because I believe that the people boarding the normal tickets that are allocated in the back of the plane, they had to go down through the stairs, outside in the crazy heat, walk through the airport, and not just walk, you need to stay out there in the sun because let's just face it, when you go to walk in an airplane, you don't really, you stand, you wait, right? So I was there enjoying my seat, looking from the window, the second class citizens, the second class passengers that were getting boiled in the heat and could not use the bridge. Why couldn't we bring everyone from the front of the plane through that nice bridge that is covered from the sun and give everyone a decent experience? Why did you have EasyJet to make me feel superior by walking through an air-conditioned funnel, sitting down in my seat, watching the rest of my co-passengers getting fried in the asphalt of the airport field trying to board manually? So there goes one. If this is a standard practice, I'm not ready for it. I could understand if the world goes there one day, but I'm just not ready for it. And if you gave me the option to have to walk through the heat of the airport outside area to wait in the sun to board a plane or to, I don't know, pay a couple of euros to board from an air conditioning. I mean, I'm compromised now. I'm recording this in the heat. I would pay for it. It's almost the same as the eggs with the normal eggs and the free range eggs and the bio eggs. It's almost that you can choose the level of suffering you want your chicken to have experienced. This is the same thing here. You choose the level of suffering that you're able to take. I hate this economy. It's the same with blasting you with advertisements and all of these things. It's like we will degrade your experience and your existence so low that we will almost make it that if you respect yourself enough, you need to pay to not have the bad experience. And this is brutal. This is so brutal. Anyway, onwards, I want to say that I checked in a hotel and there's this thing the hotels have been doing for many years. I just want to call it out. They have started these programs where they say, hey, do not use your towels all the time, or please let us know when you actually want us to change your towels. If you really want new ones, put them there. And the problem I have is that the hotels, the way they frame this new anti-wastage towel situation, they pretend that they care for the environment. They give you these statistics. This amount of water is being wasted every day to wash all these towels. So if you really need your towel washed, let us know, but otherwise maybe keep it for the environment. You don't care about the environment. You just don't want to clean my room. You just want to save money. You want to save money from your cleaning stuff. You want to save money from how many clothes you're washing. You know what? If you really cared about the environment and it wasn't to maximize your profit, how about we make a deal and you pay me when you don't clean my room? Doesn't that sound better? So you can tell me, hey, Hermes, let's all care together about the environment. If you don't want to get new towels every day and I get to save money from my electricity bill, the water bill, and the cleaning stuff, how about I give some of that back to you? That would be a good deal. That would be more honest than trying to guilt trip me that I am destroying the environment for wanting a new towel while Trump is allowing the oil companies to drill in every protected area and is dismantling every type of regulatory service that exists to monitor anything. How many towels can I save? I will never use a towel if that would solve anything. But that's the lie they're serving us, the individual responsibility, that we all share the same responsibility. And I want to record an episode. I have a lot of things. This is not the time to start my manifesto, but what another great example of this about the individual responsibility from the plastic economy. You know that they've tricked us that plastic is recyclable and we try to recycle so much of it, while in reality, it's only about 3% that can actually get recycled. The rest is getting burned. The rest is getting treated with normal trash. They just don't tell us. If only we recycled more, the problem would be solved. We're trying, but that's not really the problem. But anyway, you should ditch plastic anyways. It's leaching microplastics all the time. Use glass, use metal, and don't buy synthetic clothes. Remember that as well. Buy wool, buy cotton, buy the nice things. Every synthetic piece of cloth you're owning, whether it's your sports things or, I don't know, a light the dress or a footballer's t-shirt, whatever it is, every single synthetic clothing you have is shredding microplastics to your skin, to the environment, and everywhere. It's cheaper. That's why the companies want to use it. It's a byproduct of crude oil and petrol, and they love using those to make things. Yes, it can be water resistant, but at what cost? But I will wrap my rage up with one last bit. I know that now I've put a lot of things brewing in there, but I want to channel all my hate into a single person. When we were flying back from this wedding we went to in Denmark, it's a 50-minute flight. I had the baby with me. When a baby is less than 2 years old, they get to fly for free, which is really cool, but they need to sit on your lap. And when a baby is, 4 months old, that's cute. But if your baby is an 18-month-old little terrorist that needs to be entertained every single freaking second, then it becomes a real challenge. We're literally entering the plane like we are some sort of personnel. We have a bag full of gags. I have all sorts of tricks up my sleeves. I have snacks in my side pockets. I'm just a non-stop entertainment machine that can keep bringing new things when the old things don't work anymore, which is about every 3 to 5 minutes. And now I'm going through the flight. It's hot, it's stressful, there's a lot going on. I try to keep him entertained. There's very little space. We also have a bag underneath the seat in the front, as you should, and not at the top. Trying to have snacks and the games and the books, and he's grabbing things, and every now and then he's throwing things, and I'm having a rough time. There's an old lady to the right that is talking to him, which is cool. It's nice that we get to meet people because then he spends time looking at them or talking to them. She's helping out. This is what you should do. And the bastard in the front seat, 20 minutes into the flight, decides to recline his seat back. Who on earth tilts their seat back in a 45-minute flight when the person behind you has a baby? Can we please all channel some hate, some bad karma to that disgraceful human being? And in the beginning, I thought maybe he doesn't realize there's a baby. It was a guy in his, 40s or 50s. He looked tough. He didn't really care around. He had this woman next to him that looked a little bit like a trophy wife. Sorry if I'm being stereotypical, but she did. I tried to get the trophy wife to see that I have a baby in case she can do anything, but of course I should know she has no powers over him. She was hugging his arm, and I'm like, oh my God, the thickness. And the truth is, I was too shy. I didn't make a scene out of it. I hoped he would realize. I hoped he just hasn't seen it. Later on, I hope that my son is going to start kicking the seat or throwing things on his head. The flight attendants, as they were coming by, I tried to communicate with my eyes like a kidnapped victim and show them, but they didn't get it. So, yeah, let's just say that I couldn't even hold the book in front of us because what was in front of us was the seat. But I kept it cool. I also kept it cool for the baby, and things worked out. But let's all hate that guy. Thank you. How about we stay on the hate as a topic? We can stay on the hate. I think it's a good day when it's so hot and sweaty and everything is annoying. Let's just stay annoyed in a few things. But before that, a tiny good piece of news. I had said in the previous episode and in this one a bit how the Trump administration was dismantling an ocean monitoring program that took almost 700 million to put in place, that was collecting data critical to the understanding of climate change and marine ecosystems, basically things sitting at the bottom of the sea that are there to collect data and help scientists understand what the hell is going on and what we're doing. He started out of nowhere to remove them. There is active research being done from this. This is a network that has been built over decades, and there is no cost. It's just sitting there giving data. And he started a project to just rip it all apart. The backlash was very big. I even reported it, a tiny podcast in the middle of nowhere. He had bipartisan backlash of both Republicans and Democrats. And somehow the pressure was so big that the National Science Foundation announced that it will pause the efforts to remove the deep sea monitoring instruments that collect this data. So this is at least something good. Bizarre is it that it was the National Science Foundation that was removing the deep sea monitoring instruments. But what do you expect from the person who has named the Ministry of Defense Ministry of War? It doesn't get more Orwellic than that. But at least this network of sensors will stay there. But in a similar manner, let's remember the world's first trillionaire, Elon Musk. I will not devote time to touch on the subject of Elon Musk's SpaceX company going in the stock market, making an IPO. There is a lot of information out there that explains how he has basically made a very elaborate cover-up of using SpaceX as a way to cover costs that have been bleeding money from xAI, his AI company, as well as Twitter. He has done 3 mergers on his own. He's putting one company inside another company, and then he makes SpaceX buy all of that. Basically, he's making a link in which he created a Trojan horse, SpaceX, going into the stock market, going into the top 500 companies. They had to bend the rules to do it. You can read why and how. But basically, ETFs that are tracking the biggest companies, they always have to buy. Let's say that you are following the S&P 500, the 500 most profitable companies. If you buy an ETF that tracks these companies, you are essentially buying a piece of every one of these 500, right? So Elon Musk, by putting SpaceX in there, has forced all of the funds, all of the investors, everyone that is tracking the 500 or the top biggest companies to also buy, even if they don't want. And this has reached the point where American retirement funds that are supposed to always be put on safe, stable investments are now also including in them these X stocks. The problem with these stocks is that they are insanely overpriced. There is no return of investment anywhere in sight, but Musk made it in a way to make everyone who's rich even richer if they join by putting 30% of these stocks into the general public. I will stop here because it gets me very annoyed, but all of this is a big scam, in my opinion, and it's very, very concerning that he managed to push this all the way through the stock exchange on ridiculous assumptions, on hidden debt, and by using a strategy that will leave the little guys and the little consumers having to pay the price. But I don't want to talk about that, even though I did. That's my problem. I want to talk about the glorious work he did at DOGE. So if you don't remember, Elon Musk was part of the Trump administration. He created an agency that was there to cut money, to save money. 1 trillion they wanted to save, I think. And they just started cutting programs left and right. Very famously cutting the USAID programs that America was sending humanitarian aid to African countries and to many places that the US had created the problem to begin with. So war-torn countries and things like that. They cut USAID, Millions of people have died as an indirect consequence of that. They cut anything having to do with DEI and LGBTQ and all those of things. But they cut a bunch of things. They never saved a trillion. If anything, this has cost much more money than it ever saved. So remember that. They're good at making big, bold claims. And then at the end of the day, when the music is off and the lights are done, if you go investigate what happened, is worse than you can imagine. But I will share you one example. Sorry for the long intro. I just never know for what things you have context and for what things not. I want to assume you have context for everything, but often when I start speaking, my brain just decides to give context just in case. And I have received feedback that some of you want even more context for all of these things. And I have received feedback that some of you are also following world news and it's usually easy to follow through. So I don't know where you are on that spectrum. I just want to say I do my best. Sometimes in order to give the entire context, I would have to skip the topic I want to talk about because you would need so much context to create the scene before the example comes that the example, there's no time to do the whole thing. But again, all of this to come to this one example. Elon Musk, with the Department of Government Efficiency, my ass, previously cut programs that monitored and contained a thing called the screw worm in Central America and the US. What is the screw worm? It's a disease. It's a worm that grows into the bellies of livestock, of animals. I think pigs, I don't even know, but I think it's pigs or cows and things like that. And they had a program to monitor it. How much did that program cost? $15 million per year. Okay? DOGE decided we don't need a prevention program for a deadly disease of livestock. This program was running for 6 decades, I think, and the US didn't have any screwworm cases because they were running the program. So, surprise, surprise, what happened? In June 2026, right now, they detected that there is a screwworm infestation in the US in their animals. The first one in 6 decades. You don't tell. So there are many confirmed cases. They have spread in multiple counties in Texas. Way to go, Texas. Also the favorite state of Elon Musk. So now the disease is spreading everywhere because they cut the preventative program. So they need to combat this outbreak. How much money are they putting in response to try and stop this? I want to make a dramatic pause. So they cut a 15 million per year program that prevents an animal disease. Then, to no one's surprise, the disease happened. And now they need to spend $1 billion in response to this outbreak. They need to kill a lot of animals. The damage for those that have livestock and are using them for, I don't know, making burgers will also be in the hundreds of millions because they are losing basically their herds. So yeah, very good job, Elon Musk. It was exciting to see you come out with a chainsaw in that event, saying how you will cut the spending. This, yeah, you and the squad of 18-year-olds you created, just deciding what to cut based on the titles of database downloads was a very smart choice. I hope you eat those burgers. In similar news, do you know the disease called measles? I know about it because we've done the vaccines. No one hears measles besides when having to do the vaccine, and this is why the world has eradicated the disease thanks to vaccines, like many other diseases. However, the US has a war with science that has started with disinformation campaigns and the MAGA movement and so many. The history of the future will dig into what caused this collapse of society, of norms, of science, of any critical thinking on what's true and what's not, on what's a fact and what's opinion, on what are feelings and what is the verifiable reality. But I just want to say that Utah has a measles outbreak because they stopped vaccinating their children because they're buying the propaganda about the vaccines. So this is basically America's new reality. It's officially a country in which vaccine-preventable diseases are again common. And this measles outbreak in Utah is so massive that it has forced the health officials to abandon the concept of containment, like to try and stop it from spreading. And they've shifted now to mitigation, like let's just try to have it have the less amount of damage instead of stop spreading it. They can't control the spread anymore, which signals a very dangerous era for all vaccine preventable diseases in America. So in kindergartens, the vaccination coverage that's needed to create this, there's a thing called the herd immunity. Herd, like if you put many people together and many of them have immunity, then the disease cannot spread. It's a mathematical model, okay? And if 95% of a population is immune, then the disease cannot jump around and do its thing. Now, in kindergartens, the vaccination coverage in the US has dropped to close to 90%, 92. And this is exactly what the math and science says would happen. The disease is able to spread now. So that's what happens. And public health officials are warning that reversing this trend will be very difficult. It will require a massive educational blitz on vaccine safety to counter the highly effective outreach of the anti-vaccine movement. And of course, this is what happens if we look at the current Health and Human Services Secretary, the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. guy. He's the one that has spent years spreading doubt through social media ads and films and organizations to minimize the viral threats while exaggerating the risks of vaccines. So they have exactly the administration that is behind what is creating these problems. So this is just the beginning. Medical experts, the real experts that know their shit, are in fear that there will be a growing vaccine hesitancy, which will lead to the devastating resurgence of entirely preventable diseases. This is exactly what will happen. So one more example in this one, the American Secretary of War, they renamed it to this very subtle thing, Hegseth, a guy that allegedly is an alcoholic ex-Fox News presenter, because that's the profile you would want to run the world's strongest army. He decided that the flu vaccine that the military had required since 1945 was, and I quote, an overly broad and not rational thing to do. His big philosophical breakthrough was that, quote, your body and your faith are not negotiable. Very beautiful, very inspiring, the kind of thing you say right before nature schedules a counter-argument. So here's what happens next. This guy, Hegseth, decided to make the flu vaccine optional in the army. He put it into this agenda of snowflakism and skepticism around the vaccines. Now, before this change, the recruit vaccination was basically 100% because it was not optional. But after Hegseth set the warriors free, it dropped to 40%. 40. And then guess what happened 2 months later? In a twist that absolutely no one that has any brain cell of common sense left could have imagined, the boot camp in Texas, where hundreds of exhausted recruits sleep in one room and shower together, got a hit with a flu outbreak. And then hundreds and hundreds got sick. About 300 were not able to do trainings and to be ready, for all the great wars that the US is pursuing. So what did they do? Very quietly, with no press conference this time, the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force said, well, actually, recruits have to get that shot again. Your body and your faith, non-negotiable for about 8 weeks until an outbreak happens, and these uneducated morons understand that science doesn't play around. Because of a guy who used to host a morning show on Fox News deciding that biology is too woke to believe in. And with this, we're close to the end. I have way too many things to tell you, but there we are. Pretty US-centered this time, plus my flights. I want to throw 2 more facts to you about the whole situation going on with Iran. I just want to remind the world one more time that Obama had a deal with Iran already. There was a deal that they gave them $1 to $2 billion of their frozen assets back to Iran, and Iran promised to de-enrich 98% of their uranium, basically making it nearly impossible to ever have anything nuclear. Trump came into office. That deal was signed 2014, 2015, something like that. Please, if I'm wrong, look it up and write me. Trump came in and he decided this deal is no good. And he was fighting this deal the whole time, saying that we're giving billions to terrorists and blah, 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 and I will make a better deal in all of this situation. I just want to remind you the math right now, besides the chaos and destruction that has happened and is happening across the Middle East. It seems like the US has unfrozen $300 billion of funds to Iran to help with the reconstruction of everything. They have spent about $113 billion on the war, and that does not even include the domino effect in the economy that has happened to the rest of the world. Right now, there is no deal. The Strait of Hormuz opens and closes all the time because the US cannot even guarantee that there will be no attacks in Lebanon. And we are at a place where they are not at all able to even negotiate about nuclear. They're only negotiating for the Strait of Hormuz, which only closed in the first place because the US started this war or joined to start this war by the invitation of Israel. So just remember where we are right now, and about $500 billion wasted in a country that has no healthcare, no public healthcare, and not social services. And they're even removing the food program for the poor, the food stamps programs. They say they don't have money for it. But they could start a war for nothing, fail miserably in every aspect of it, pay $500 billion for something that was already in place. It costed $1.5 billion and had a deal with the nuclear side of things involved. Now there's none of that. So just a reminder that it's like the meme where someone is riding a bicycle and then sticks a stick in the front wheel and then falls down and complains that they fell down. But someone would have to create an ultra version of this meme to even begin to describe what it feels like experiencing the version of reality that a lot of the US foreign policy actions are creating. We are pretty over time. I can feel I'm getting tired. Should we hate a bit more or wrap it up? Because there is also this whole reflecting pool, the Lincoln Memorial thing, a huge pool that is close to the White House. You know, Trump is like an old guy with money. He looks around in his White House and he just changes things all the time. He puts fake gold everywhere. He puts his face everywhere. He put his face in coins, even though that's no other person has done this. Usually the presidents die and then their face goes into things, but Trump puts his face in everything while he's still alive. He put his face in the passports recently as well. He has demolished one wing of the White House to build this expensive ballroom so he can be also showing fancy things to his dictator friends. But one of his projects was this reflecting pool in the Lincoln Memorial. It's this you've seen it in Forrest Gump or in some of these movies. In Washington, D.C., there is this very long line of water. It ends in a big monument, like a big pillar. And this big pool is not as blue as it should be. They want it to be blue. It's something the previous governments tried to fix as well. But Trump came hard on this. He was bashing it so much, and he was saying how it's unacceptable, this national monument, and that he will make it blue. And what he did next was, of course, to just assign a contract to a friend of his without any formal process. He literally said, that guy knows how to make pools because that guy has made the pools in his resorts, in Trump's resorts. So he gave a federal contract to this guy. It was supposed to cost $1 million to make this pool be more blue. It ended up costing 15 times more because this is how you make money. It was a no-bid contract, so no other company could apply for it. No one could make a proposal for it. It was just assigned, which can only happen for things of emergency or, in extreme situations. This was just redecorating a pool. Then this company drained the entire thing and started to apply a new coat of paint. Trump, straight out of a movie, straight out of Idiocracy, did a motor parade. He got in his car. He asked for the car to be put inside this very long swimming pool, and he did a motor parade in it. He drove his car. I don't know why, just to show off. Then they put this coating, then they put the water back in, and guess what happened? In a couple of days or weeks, the entire thing turned completely green, more green than it had ever been before. Algae was growing like crazy. It was so embarrassing. He couldn't stop talking about this stupid memorial and how bad it was and how he's going to fix it. Then he assigned a contractor who's a friend of his. The budget blew over 15 times over. And then 2 weeks in, that thing has turned completely green. Now, what's going on? Well, first of all, Trump, in his infinite wisdom, decided to paint the bottom of this memorial into a color called American flag blue. It's a dark blue. And again, this is an administration that completely ignores physics, science, and anything in between. So, as some people know, darker colors attract more sunlight. Now, imagine you have this very thin, long pool, it's not very deep, and you paint the entire bottom a darker blue, darker than before. The sun is hitting the bottom of this pool, which is now a darker color. That color gets more thermal energy, so the temperature is higher. Do you know what higher temperature does? It helps algae grow. It made a nice environment for algae to grow. So then the whole thing turned green. The media started laughing. The administration tried to cover it up in the most ridiculous methods possible. They sent the National Guard, like the army, to guard this thing so people wouldn't take photos. People still took photos. Then they started dumping in a thing called peroxide, is a chemical that can be used to treat aquariums or things like that. And it does destroy algae. So they started pouring that with buckets. So many workers would just go there and start emptying buckets, trying to, like, a desperate attempt to fix it. And what started to happen eventually is that the entire paint started peeling off from the bottom of this swimming pool. Like, the entire work that was paid 15 million is just being peeled off. And people that know a thing or two are saying that probably they did a bad job putting this layer anyways. Then most likely they didn't let it dry long enough because they wanted to make things fast for the president and they were already delayed. So then they put the water back in. Well, maybe the job was not fully finished for the coating. But also, someone pointed out that peroxide, the way it kills the algae, has to do with the chemical reaction that grabs an electron. And basically, if the peroxide found its way at the bottom of the pool into the paint, it can make the paint peel off. The adhesive, the glue that is used to put this layer of paint down, is actually susceptible to this chemical they use to kill the algae. So it doesn't get more comical than that. Only tragic, because people started taking photos of these blue bottom just peeling off. And instead of burying his head in the sand, Trump had the audacity to arrest these people and say that they used a knife to cut the bottom of the swimming pool 100 meters long, like someone jumped in with a knife and started cutting. This is what he's saying. And the people who are touching the floating paint that has sipped from the bottom, one of them was an Olympian athlete for the US national team. Another one is a Swedish reporter. And they're just touching these floating huge pieces of peeled off paint. So now Trump is saying it was vandalism. It's not science. Someone went there with a knife. Does he have any proof? No. Is this the most recorded place on Earth? Maybe. They have cameras everywhere. Is there any camera showing someone cutting the bottom of a pool with a knife, Trump? I don't think so. If so, please show us. And the funny thing is that they fucked up so much that there is no way they can fix this. They also put people trying to collect the algae and it's just a bunch of people in panic trying out different things without thinking for a second. And it backfires completely. And now it seems very likely they will have to drain all the water out of it again and redo the whole thing. You know what? I know it's a long one, but maybe I don't make episodes for a bit. So I'll just give you two more things and then I'll be out. You can put the pause here. You can listen at another time. You can keep in the back of your mind, hey, wait, I never listened the whole of that episode. I wonder what happens at the end. We're getting very close to the end. But very small things. First, who hates mosquitoes? I hope everyone. Who's using repellent against mosquitoes? Probably a lot of people. Guess what? Have you ever had this horrible experience of using the freaking repellent that usually smells bad? It's chemical on your body. And if you start sweating, it's also a very disgusting, sticky experience. And even though you suscept yourself to this level of discomfort in order to get the stupid mosquitoes away, they still come and they bite you. Have you ever been in that situation? Guess what? Common insect repellent is now actually attracting mosquitoes. It's sending signals for a blood meal for bugs. So there was a study, and you know how animals adapt and organizations adapt and all of these things keep adapting. It seems the mosquitoes have caught up to repellent, and they have now been able to associate it with, ooh, this is someone that has probably really good blood trying to protect themselves, and it has become the scent of food. So instead of repelling, it is inviting. And I don't know from all the tragic things I said or will say in this podcast how to top that one. For anyone having a negative rhesus factor in their blood, this is one of the biggest things that attracts mosquitoes and how much CO2 you expel. I don't know what to say. Actually, I do. I just remember this clicks in my brain so well. I remember receiving this advice from my good friend Jessie from South Africa that said, when you want to repel mosquitoes, you need a repellent from a different country. Oh my goodness, she was telling me that some years ago as a common secret, and she was making this case that just buy a mosquito repellent from a different place, buy the South African one and just use it in Greece, and that this has the best results. And at the time it made sense because I thought, okay, mosquitoes get used to it by being less effective. But now I understand that they get used to it. Like a neon sign says, we're open here for business, come have some blood. So this is my first piece of advice. There is a substance that's called DET or D something that most repellents have. And this is the one that mosquitoes have now realized it means time for a meal. So this is the thing to avoid. And I will end with a tragic piece of news. I mean, people are dying left and right for all sorts of reasons. We are at a bad time with war and heat waves and all the bad things I keep talking about. But I just want to say a tiny one. I just read this morning, 11 people dead from an aircraft that fell in France. And I'm thinking, okay, 11 people, that's not a very big aircraft. So I kept reading the article, and I just want to say here that I deeply give my condolences to every one of these people's families, and I understand it's a tragic loss, and I get it, but there is something about this article that I cannot bring out, because these 11 people that died in this aircraft, where were they going? What were they doing? Well, it turns out this aircraft was from a school of parachute jumpers. The people who jump and open parachutes. I don't know what's the word in English. So apparently this airplane had pilot plus 10 people, 5 students and 5 instructors of parachuting. You know how many people died? All of them. And I don't want to be a horrible person, but I would guess that there is no better scenario than having a parachute on you while an airplane is falling. And I would also dare to say that maybe if there is something better than having a parachute on you while the plane is falling, would be to have an actual parachute instructor right next to you while this whole thing is happening. And someone could say that having 5 instructors of how to jump with a parachute while this is happening is as lucky as it gets. So I don't know how unlucky you need to be to die in an airplane crash that was carrying 5 parachute instructors and 5 people getting trained on this. It's like reading that 10 people drowned in a swimming pool while having swimming classes. I'm trying to think of other similar examples, but it doesn't get more specialized than that. It's like 5 anaconda experts die from an anaconda during an anaconda class. But maybe I'm too tired to find a good example for this, a good parallel. You can do that for yourselves. Tragic event nonetheless. But if anyone had a chance to make it out alive from a plane crash, that would have been these people. They didn't. Rest in peace. Thousands more didn't make it from the heat. So stay hydrated, stay in the shade, close your curtains, lock your door, close your ears, turn off your router, open a candlelight, and pray for the state of the world. I had been me, you had been you. Long episode, I know. I know it's tiring for you to hear. It was pretty challenging for me to also record while melting. I'm right now reduced down to a puddle of sweat. This tiny fan is doing nothing anymore, so I will wrap it up and go sink in the bathtub. Until next time, whenever that is, and let's aim for the 100th episode. Thank you very, very, very much for listening. You know what to do. Click the clicks, tell a friend, and ciao.